You are listening to the Screen to Screen Selling Talk Show hosted by Doug DeVitri, your source to increasing sales, productivity, and the customer experience. In each show, we will sit down with world-class thought leaders to discuss latest trends, innovative concepts, and ideas to keep you ahead of the curve using the latest technology. Welcome back to the show. Very special guest, Sylvie DiGiusto, one of my great friends, image consultant. Welcome to the show today, Sylvie.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm very impressed about how you just said my name. One in a million who gets it this right than you just did.
Well, and I also, going with the professional image, I tried to model what you're wearing, so I guess we're both wearing black today.
Yeah. I already scanned you from the top to the bottom. Don't worry.
Well, Sylvie, let me ask you from, how we're approaching ourselves in the marketplace to where, a lot of it traditional was face-to-face, and then, with the evolution to the phone, and now we're having conversations where we're screen to screen. How should we be dressing for success before we even get to these conversations?
Well, first of all, as an image consultant, my work is, or the way I help clients is in terms of that I always say I'm in the business of 7 seconds. When we see each other, during 7 seconds, there is science in behind that our brain makes 11 major decisions about each other. So when you first meet another person, in the first 7 seconds, you already decide if that person is knowledgeable, if she's successful, if she's trustworthy, and so on. So it's tremendously important that you have a positive imprint at the very beginning, because it's going to be hard for you to change that imprint during the conversation. And very traditional image consultants very much focus on in-person interactions, but what I do is that I, in the meantime, say that most of our impressions or the interactions we have with each other are actually not in person anymore. They are made by what I call a digital footprint. Either we send each other an email, for example, and if somebody new sends you an email, this person already imprints something in your head just by the way they greet you in that email, or the right or the end the email. But also they might Google you and find something from you online on your social media profiles, or just some article about you, or whatever they find in search engines, and then highlighted by the fact that once they could even meet you online, they could meet you on Skype, or they meet you like we just do in front of a camera and talk to each other, and it's the first time we actually see each other.
No, yeah, and that's great. So what would you recommend doing, on how to package yourself so that you have the same message throughout all of these different channels that you're talking about?
Mm-hmm. Well, 2 recommendations. First of all, avoid distraction for any price. You want to be known for your skills. You want to be known for your knowledge. You want to be known for your experience. You want to be known for the added value you bring to the table during those online conversations as much during offline conversation. So avoid any kind of distraction for any price, because people should focus on what you say and the message you have to deliver. And the second thing is, of course, there are specific practical requirements you have to consider. You are in front of a camera and it's technical, and there are just things that work very good and things that don't work so good. So for example, lighting is a very important technical or a critical thing, as you know, that you are well lightened. And then, for example, the colors or patterns that you wear, or how many people also are very unsure, not very confident of being in front of a camera and talking this way, less confident than actually in person. So it's important for you what you wear and what that something carries you through that conversation.
Yeah, we're both wearing black. I feel comfortable wearing black because it's a whole lot easier to manage. It's, I guess, you kind of blend into it. What colors would you recommend, or maybe even what background would you recommend? Because we're both use a different type of background.
Yeah, it always depends on the background, what's behind you and what's in front of you in terms of the lighting. But there are a few things that work better and a few things that work less. So for example, what's not very good and not very well received, also if you go into a studio and do professional interviews in front of a camera, are high contrasts. So what you shouldn't do is, for example, that you wear your 70s white jacket or blazer over that black shirt because that's high contrast, white and black. What also doesn't work very well are patterns. Patterns create very easily, especially if you have small patterns, something we call a moire effect. And then, it's a distraction. It moves around all the time. In terms of the colors itself, years ago, you would have learned things like don't wear red because it blends in. But I tell you the truth, in the meantime, cameras and technology and lighting is so far that I wouldn't be concerned about those very old-fashioned rules anymore. There is one general rule: always wear colors that are darker than your skin tone. Never go brighter than your skin tone, because usually then you look just very, very bland. No, it draws color out of your skin. So always go darker and not light. No, that's just a general advice.
It's interesting too, because you also have different types of videos that might be more homegrown. So, where you're kind of doing it right out of your office, or you have the more professional where you're in actual studio filming. Are there any disadvantages other than, from doing it on a more homegrown from your office as opposed to the, studio?
No, but in both cases, it's, for example, if I work with people who go in the studio, usually I work with politicians or with CEOs who somehow represent their companies, or with public speakers or whatever. I tell them the area we have to most concentrate on is this area. Very simple. Nobody cares about your shoes at that moment. Nobody cares about your socks, because usually in front of a camera, they show you shoulders upwards. So let's work on this area most. And then, things like grooming come into place, makeup come into place, hair is important, jewelry is important, everything that's kind of shoulders upwards. But never forget, there might be the occasion that for any reason you have to stand up and walk around, or this show a full body shot. If you are at home, that might not really happen, because you are your own boss and you can decide how about the way you want to appear in front of the camera. In a studio, that might happen, that they have just some other plans. So it's not important, but the most important part is always shoulder upwards.
Yeah, great. So I guess in making that decision to go to a professional studio, you really needed to ask yourself, do my clients have that expectation of that image that I'm trying to create, to play at that level?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you are on that professional level, you also have to take into consideration that usually the technical equipment around you is more professional and will show mistakes you make, even in a bigger and harder way than here in our home camera or in our home studio situation, right? So if you ever go in front of really professional cameras, make sure that you do a professional makeup, make sure, and that's also true for men, by the way, make sure that you have a professional hairdresser there, make sure that you have somebody who helps you with your wardrobe, because otherwise, especially if you invest money into that filming or whatever it is, you are going to regret that if you don't invest into that additional help.
Yeah, because sometimes we joke about the bloopers of watching those that are on professional television. There's another blooper right there. Making that mistake, we poke fun of them. What are some of those mistakes that you would want to avoid making that you probably would see common with some of the clients you work with?
Well, as I said, the biggest mistake is if you bring in distraction, and if you don't bring it in on purpose. So the difference is, for example, you might have watched the Republican candidates a few weeks ago. Did you see that? Did you see it? Did you watch it?
It's become its own drama series in itself. So.
Have you been one of the 25 million US people who were in front of the TVs to watch Donald Trump, and everybody else included? Yeah. So that was a very good example. There were candidates. They were really badly dressed, and everybody was talking about it. And I just think it's not worth it. Why would you go in front of such an audience or into a studio and allow people to talk about your appearance, about your clothing? It's not worth it. You have more important things to share. The second thing is, if there is something weird like Donald Trump's hair, it becomes a topic, it becomes an issue. And everybody is just waiting, confirmation buyer, that in addition, he says something dumb or something stupid because he already looks that way, right? We're looking more for that than we focus on the messages, on the content he has. Then there are distractions. One of the candidates had a pinstripe suit. And I say, I mean, if you want to be the president of the United States, you should know or have people around you who tell you pinstripe just doesn't work. Go in front of a camera. Array effect. And then we had Chris Christie wearing a neon green armband around his arm, you know? And it was a distraction. Afterwards, it turned out it was as a support for some other governor who suffers cancer, and to show that support, he was wearing that bracelet. But it's a distraction. It's a distraction from all the messages you have. So this is the biggest mistake. If people bring something in or have something on them that distracts from the content and the information they have to share.
So really what I'm getting from you is based on what you wear, it can be more of a detriment more than it probably would help you.
Yeah, it has to be a no topic, a non-issue. You don't want to, if you ever are remembered for something you have been wearing, you made a mistake. You made a mistake, right? You wear something wrong because you want to be remembered for your words, for your content, for the information, for the value you bring to the table, and not for what you have been wearing.
Well, Sylvie, based off of your new book, The Image of Leadership, that's now available, what would you recommend one thing to do before we go to our next appointment, whether it's face-to-face, screen-to-screen, to make sure that we're portraying the best professional image out there?
Look in the mirror. It's as easy as that. Look in the mirror from the front and from the back too, because we also see you from the back. You don't, but we do. Ask yourself, do I represent myself in the way I want to be represented? And if there is just one teeny tiny doubt, you probably don't do a good job that day. Because I always tell, very often people ask me, is that appropriate for work to wear? And I tell them, if you already have that idea or that question in your mind, it's probably not. So look into the mirror, scan yourself from the top to the floor and ask yourself, do I represent myself in the way I want to be known for? Do I tell that story that I'm telling today also with my visual appearance?
Well, Sylvie, you definitely look and you act like the professional image consultant that you are, and really appreciate you being a part of the show today.
You are listening to the Screen to Screen Selling Talk Show, hosted by Doug DiVitri, your source to increasing sales, productivity, and the customer experience. In each show, we will sit down with world-class thought leaders to discuss latest trends, innovative concepts, and ideas to keep you ahead of the curve using the latest technology.
Are you ready for more meetings in less time with less expense? Screen-to-Screen Selling has answers. Screen-to-Screen Selling is the fastest way to increase sales, productivity, and the customer experience. Screen-to-Screen Selling is a mindset before it becomes a skill set. Let's look at your beliefs.
Or even like join.me.
Receive access to upcoming episodes of the Screen-to-Screen Selling Talk Show, special announcements, and insider resources. DiVitri.co/screen-to-screen. Order Screen-to-Screen Selling from 800-CEO-READ, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Books A Million, and McGraw-Hill Education.